The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the dusty trails into rivers of mud and making the whole world seem like it was drowning. Samuel Hartwell pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders as he urged his horse through the storm, squinting through the darkness toward the lights of his ranch house still miles away. He'd been in town longer than intended, settling accounts with the feed store and sharing a drink with old friends at the saloon. Now the storm had caught him, and all he wanted was to get home to his warm fire and dry clothes. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the landscape in stark white for a brief moment. That's when he saw her, a small figure huddled against a fence post beside the old Brennan place. Sam pulled his horse to a stop, wiping rain from his eyes. In the next flash of lightning, he could see clearly that it was a young girl, maybe 16 or 17, tied to the wooden post with rope. Her dress was soaked through, and she was shivering violently in the cold. Without hesitation, Sam spurred his horse forward and dismounted before the animal had even come to a complete stop. The girl looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes as he approached, her dark hair plastered to her head by the rain. She tried to shrink back against the post, but the ropes held her fast. "Easy there, miss," Sam said, his voice gentle despite having to raise it above the storm. "I'm not going to hurt you. Let me get you free from these ropes." He pulled out his knife and began cutting through the wet hemp that bound her wrists. The girl watched him with a mixture of hope and fear, her whole body trembling from cold and terror. When the last rope fell away, she collapsed forward, and Sam caught her before she could hit the muddy ground. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the thunder. Tears mixed with rainwater on her face as she looked up at him. "Please don't send me back. I'll do anything, cook, clean, work in the fields. Just please don't send me back to them." Sam felt his heart clench at the desperation in her voice. He'd seen enough cruelty in his 43 years to recognize the look of someone who'd been hurt badly. "Nobody's sending you anywhere you don't want to go," he said firmly. "Right now, we need to get you someplace warm and dry before you catch your death." He helped her to her feet, noting how she flinched when he touched her arm. Whatever had happened to this girl, it had left deep scars that went beyond anything visible. Sam wrapped his coat around her small frame and lifted her onto his horse before mounting behind her. She felt fragile as a bird in his arms, all sharp bones and trembling flesh. The ride to his ranch took another hour through the storm, but Sam's house finally came into view, its windows glowing yellow against the darkness. His foreman, Joe Martinez, came running from the bunkhouse with a lantern as soon as he heard the horses. "Señor Sam, we were worried about you in this storm," Joe called out, then stopped short when he saw the girl. "Dios mío, what happened?" "Found her tied to a post out by the old Brennan place," Sam said grimly as he helped the girl down from the horse. "Joe, can you see to Thunder? Get him rubbed down and fed." "Essie, of course," Joe said, taking the reins. His weathered face was full of concern as he looked at the shivering girl. "Maria is in the kitchen. She can help the señorita." Sam nodded and guided the girl toward the house. She moved slowly as if every step caused her pain, and he noticed she kept looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone to come after her. The warm air inside the house seemed to revive her slightly, but she still clung to his coat like it was a lifeline. "Mara?" Sam called out. His housekeeper appeared from the kitchen, a stout Mexican woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She took one look at the girl and immediately sprang into action. Pobrecita," Maria murmured, rushing forward. "Come, child. Let's get you out of those wet clothes before you freeze." She began leading the girl toward the stairs. "I'll draw you a hot bath and find something warm for you to wear." The girl looked back at Sam with panic in her eyes. "You won't send me away while I'm upstairs, will you? You won't call the sheriff?" "I give you my word," Sam said solemnly. "You're safe here for as long as you need to be." Something in his tone seemed to reassure her, and she allowed Maria to lead her upstairs. Sam poured himself a generous whiskey and stood by the fire, trying to make sense of what he'd found. Who ties a young girl to a fence post in a thunderstorm? What kind of people was she so desperate not to return to? An hour later, the girl came back downstairs wearing one of Maria's dresses that had been taken in to fit her small frame. Her hair was clean and braided, revealing a face that was pretty despite the exhaustion and fear etched into her features. She had a split lip that was healing and a yellowing bruise on her left cheek that made Sam's jaw tighten with anger. "Feeling better?" he asked gently, gesturing to a chair by the fire. She nodded and sat down carefully as if sudden movements might bring pain. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't owe me anything," Sam said, settling into his own chair. "But I'd like to know your name, if you're comfortable sharing it." "Rebecca," she said after a moment's hesitation. "Rebecca Morgan." "Well, Rebecca Morgan, I'm Samuel Hartwell, but most folks just call me Sam. This is my ranch and you're welcome to stay as long as you need to." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You don't understand. When they find out I'm gone, they'll come looking. And when they find me, they'll make things even worse. Maybe I should just go back now and save everyone the trouble." "Nobody's going back anywhere," Sam said firmly. "Why don't you tell me what happened?" Sometimes talking about it helps. Rebecca was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "My parents died of fever 2 years ago. I had nowhere to go, so the town council arranged for me to stay with the Blackwood family. They said I'd be like a daughter to them, that they'd take good care of me." She paused, wrapping her arms around herself. At first, it wasn't too bad. Mrs. Blackwood was cold, but she wasn't cruel. But then she got sick and died 6 months ago. After that, everything changed. Mr. Blackwood. She trailed off, her face flushing with shame. Sam felt rage building in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "He hurt you." Rebecca nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "And his sons, they were just as bad. When I tried to tell the preacher, they said I was lying, that I was an ungrateful girl spreading wicked stories about the family that had taken me in. So I tried to run away. But they caught me before I got far, and that's when they tied me to that post. They said I could stay there until I learned to be grateful for what they'd given me." "How long were you out there?" Sam asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Since yesterday morning. They said they'd come back for me when the storm passed, assuming I survived it. If I didn't, well, that would solve their problem too." Sam stood up abruptly and walked to the window, his hands clenched into fists. In the distance, he could see the lights of town, and somewhere in that town were the men who had done this to Rebecca. The Blackwood family was well known in the area. They owned a large spread and had considerable influence. Thomas Blackwood served on the town council and was a deacon in the church. His 2 sons, Marcus and James, were known for their drinking and gambling, but they'd never been called to account for anything more serious than the occasional bar fight. "Mr. Hartwell." Rebecca's voice was small and frightened. "I've caused you trouble, haven't I? I should go." Sam turned back to her, his expression softening. "You haven't caused me any trouble, Rebecca. And you're not going anywhere. This is your home now for as long as you want it to be. But they'll come for me, and when they do, they'll have to go through me first," Sam said quietly. "And I give you my word that's not going to be easy for them." Over the next few days, Sam watched Rebecca slowly begin to relax. She was skittish around Joe and the other ranch hands at first, but Maria's motherly kindness seemed to comfort her. She insisted on helping with chores around the house, and Sam could see that staying busy helped keep her mind off her troubles. She was a hard worker and surprisingly knowledgeable about ranch life. When Sam asked her about it, she explained that her father had been a ranch hand before he died, and she'd grown up around horses and cattle. She had a gentle way with the animals that impressed even Joe, who'd been working ranches for 30 years. "She has good hands," Joe told Sam one evening as they watched Rebecca feeding the horses. "The animals trust her. That's a rare gift." Sam nodded, feeling a growing protectiveness toward the girl who was slowly coming back to life under their care. She smiled more each day, and the haunted look in her eyes was beginning to fade. But he knew it couldn't last. Word would get back to town eventually that he was harboring Rebecca, and then the Blackwoods would come calling. He didn't have to wait long. On the 4th day after he'd found her, Sam saw a cloud of dust on the horizon that resolved into 3 riders heading toward his ranch. Even at a distance, he could recognize Thomas Blackwood's bulk in the saddle, flanked by his 2 sons. "Rebecca," Sam called out. She was hanging laundry with Maria, but she looked up at the sound of his voice. When she saw the riders approaching, all the color drained from her face. "No," she whispered, taking a step backward. "Please, no. Go inside," Sam said firmly. "Maria, take her upstairs and stay with her." "Joe," he called to his foreman. "Get Carlos and Miguel. I want them where I can see them but not looking for trouble." The 3 men rode into the yard like they owned the place, their horses kicking up dust and their faces set in hard lines. Thomas Blackwood was a big man with graying hair and cold blue eyes. His sons looked like younger, meaner versions of their father. "Hartwell," Thomas said without dismounting. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Can't say that I do," Sam replied evenly, stepping down from the porch. "What seems to be the problem, Thomas?" "Don't play games with me. The girl, Rebecca Morgan, she's been placed in my custody by the town council. And she ran away. I have a legal right to her." "Legal right?" Sam's voice was dangerously quiet. "Is that what you call tying a 16-year-old girl to a fence post in a thunderstorm?" Thomas's face reddened. "How I discipline the girl is my business. She's ungrateful and willful, and she needs to learn her place. Now send her out here so we can take her home." "That's not going to happen," Sam said flatly. Marcus Blackwood, the older son, leaned forward in his saddle. "You're interfering with family business, Hartwell. That could be seen as theft." "Family business?" Sam laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call what you and your brother have been doing to her?" "Watch your mouth," James Blackwood snarled, his hand moving toward his gun. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough," Sam said. "I know that girl was more dead than alive when I found her. I know she's terrified of going back with you, and I know that's not going to happen as long as there's breath in my body." Thomas Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake, Hartwell. I have influence in this town. I can make things very difficult for you, maybe," Sam said. "But you're going to have to live with what you've done to that girl for the rest of your life. I can sleep peacefully knowing I did the right thing." "The right thing?" Thomas spat. "She's a liar and a troublemaker. She's filled your head with stories. The only story I need is what I saw with my own eyes." Sam interrupted. "No, get off my land before I forget my manners." The three men sat their horses for a long moment, and Sam could feel the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Finally, Thomas pulled his reins around. "This isn't over, Hartwell," he said. "The law is on my side." "We'll see about that," Sam replied. After they rode away, Sam found Rebecca upstairs in Margie's room, curled up in a chair by the window. She'd been crying and her face was pale with fear. "They're gone," Sam said gently. "And they're not taking you anywhere." "But what he said about the law?" "Let me worry about the law," Sam said. "Tomorrow I'm riding into town to have a talk with Judge Morrison. He's a fair man and he'll listen to reason." Judge Morrison was indeed a fair man, but he was also a cautious one. When Sam explained the situation, the elderly judge listened carefully, his weathered hands folded on his desk. "It's a troubling situation, Sam," he said finally, "but Thomas Blackwood does have legal custody of the girl. The town council voted on it after her parents died. Legal custody doesn't give him the right to abuse her," Sam said firmly. "Judge, you should see the bruises on that girl. And tying her to a fence post in a storm. That's attempted murder in my book." Judge Morrison sighed heavily. "The problem is, it's her word against theirs. And the Blackwoods are a prominent family. Without proof. What about the rope burns on her wrists, the bruises on her face? Isn't that proof enough? It's evidence of rough treatment, certainly. But Thomas could claim she was injured trying to run away, or that she inflicted the injuries on herself for sympathy." Sam felt frustration building in his chest. "So you're saying there's nothing you can do?" "I'm saying it's complicated. However," the judge leaned forward, "if the girl were to marry, she'd no longer be under Thomas Blackwood's custody. Her husband would have legal authority over her welfare." Sam stared at him. "Are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Judge Morrison said carefully. "I'm simply stating the law. A married woman answers to her husband, not to her former guardian." Sam rode home in deep thought. Marriage, it was a drastic solution, but it might be the only way to keep Rebecca safe. Of course, it would have to be her choice. He couldn't make that decision for her. When he got back to the ranch, he found Rebecca in the kitchen helping Maria prepare dinner. She looked up anxiously when he came in. "What did the judge say?" Sam sat down heavily at the kitchen table. "He says Blackwood has the law on his side. Officially, you're still under his custody." Rebecca's face crumpled and fresh tears began to fall. "So I have to go back to them?" "Not necessarily," Sam said quietly. "There might be another way, but it's not a decision I can make for you." He explained what Judge Morrison had told him about marriage changing her legal status. Rebecca listened in silence, her face going through a range of emotions. "You're talking about a marriage of convenience," she said finally, "to protect me from them." "I'm talking about giving you a choice," Sam said. "It's your life, Rebecca. You should get to decide how you want to live it." She was quiet for a long time, staring down at her hands. When she looked up, there was a new strength in her eyes. "Would you do that for me?" she asked. "Marry me just to keep me safe." Sam considered his words carefully. "Rebecca, I won't lie to you. I've been alone for a long time since my wife died 5 years ago. I'd be honored to have you as my wife, whether it starts as convenience or something more. But it has to be what you want." "What would you expect from me?" she asked quietly. "Nothing you don't want to give," Sam said honestly. "You'd have a home here, a name, protection. Anything beyond that would be up to you in your own time." Rebecca looked around the warm kitchen, at Mario, who was pretending not to listen while she stirred a pot of stew, at the windows that looked out over rolling pasture land where cattle grazed peacefully. For the first time in 2 years, she felt safe. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd like to marry you, Sam." The wedding was small and simple. Judge Morrison performed the ceremony in his office with Marai and Joe as witnesses. Rebecca wore a blue dress that Maria had made for her, and Sam wore his best suit. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Sam squeezed Rebecca's hand gently. "You're safe now," he whispered. "Forever." Word of the marriage spread quickly through town, and Sam could see the anger in Thomas Blackwood's eyes when they passed each other on the street. But there was nothing the man could do now. Rebecca was legally married, beyond his reach. The early days of their marriage were awkward but comfortable. Sam was patient and kind, never pushing Rebecca for more than she was ready to give. She took over managing the household and proved to be an excellent cook and organizer. She also continued working with the horses, and Sam was amazed at her natural ability. "You have a gift," he told her one day as they watched her gentle a skittish mare. "I've never seen anything like it." Rebecca smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Papa always said I understood horses better than people. Maybe that's because horses are more honest than people," Sam said. "They don't pretend to be something they're not." As the weeks turned into months, Sam and Rebecca settled into a comfortable routine. They talked more easily now, sharing stories about their past and their hopes for the future. Rebecca still had nightmares sometimes, but they came less frequently as she began to heal from her trauma. One evening in late fall, they were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Rebecca reached over and took Sam's hand. "I have something to tell you," she said quietly. Sam felt his heart skip a beat. "What is it?" "I think I'm falling in love with you," she said, her cheeks pink with embarrassment. "I know it wasn't supposed to be that kind of marriage, but—" Sam turned to face her, his eyes bright with hope. "Rebecca, I've been in love with you for months. I just didn't want to pressure you." She smiled, the beautiful, open smile he'd grown to cherish. "Then maybe we could start over, as a real marriage this time." Sam cupped her face gently in his hands. "I'd like that more than anything." Their first real kiss was sweet and tender, full of promise for the future they would build together. When they broke apart, Rebecca rested her forehead against his. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me, for protecting me, for showing me what love really looks like." "Thank you," Sam whispered back, "for bringing joy back into my life." As if to celebrate their new beginning, the sky erupted in brilliant oranges and pinks, painting the ranch in golden light. In the distance, cattle lowed softly, and somewhere a night bird began its evening song. It was peaceful and perfect, a moment Rebecca would remember for the rest of her life. The next spring brought new life to the ranch in more ways than one. Rebecca discovered she was pregnant, and Sam was over the moon with joy. She bloomed during her pregnancy, growing stronger and more confident each day. The scared, broken girl Sam had found tied to a fence post was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her own worth and wasn't afraid to fight for what she loved. When their son was born on a warm June morning, Sam held the tiny boy in his arms and marveled at the miracle of new life. Rebecca watched her husband with tears of happiness in her eyes. "What should we name him?" Sam asked. "Hope," Rebecca said softly. "Let's call him Hope, because that's what he represents. Hope for the future, hope for healing, hope for all the good things still to come." Sam looked down at his son, then at his wife, and felt his heart swell with more love than he'd ever thought possible. "Hope it is," he said. Years passed and the Hartwell Ranch prospered. Sam and Rebecca had 2 more children, daughters they named Faith and Grace. Rebecca became known throughout the county for her way with horses, and people came from miles around to buy horses she had trained. Sam expanded the ranch, buying up neighboring land and building a reputation for fair dealing and quality cattle. The Blackwood family eventually left town after a series of scandals and failed business ventures. Thomas Blackwood died of drink a few years later, and his sons drifted away to other places. Rebecca felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that they could no longer hurt anyone else. On quiet evenings, Sam and Rebecca would sit on their porch and watch their children play in the yard. Sometimes they talked about that night in the storm when their lives changed forever. Other times they simply held hands and enjoyed the peace they had built together. "Do you ever regret it?" Rebecca asked one evening as they watched Hope teach his younger sisters to ride. Taking in a stranger, Sam pulled her closer and kissed the top of her head. "Never," he said firmly. "That night in the storm, I thought I was just helping someone in trouble. I had no idea I was finding the other half of my soul." Rebecca smiled and settled more comfortably against his side. "I used to think my life was over after my parents died. I thought all the good things were behind me, but you showed me that sometimes the worst storms bring the greatest gifts." As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Rebecca reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From despair to hope, from fear to love, from brokenness to wholeness, she had found more than just safety in Sam's arms. She had found herself. The girl who had once begged not to be sent back to a life of pain and terror was now a woman who faced each day with courage and joy. She had learned that healing was possible, that love could overcome even the deepest wounds, and that sometimes the most beautiful things grew from the darkest soil. In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, promising another storm. But Rebecca no longer feared the rain. She had learned that storms could wash away the old and make room for something new and beautiful to grow. And she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Sam would face them together, their love strong enough to weather any storm that might come their way.